Morning friends, here we go with the education in India, right? The very first important question that will be asked to you in the examination will be, what do you mean by Vedic period? Explain in details. So, Vedic period, Indian civilization and culture is one of the oldest civilization and culture of the world. But which one is the oldest, culture or civilization? Which one is the oldest, culture or civilization? It has yet not been decided. Okay, however, all except the Indian Vedas means Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, Sam Veda are the oldest scriptures of the world. Generally, Vedas are considered as religious scriptures, but they are repositories of all types of knowledge. They are repositories of all types of knowledge, and they are considered as religious scriptures, but they are the repositories of all types of knowledge. Who are they? They are Vedas. So in Vedas we are calling here as repositories of all types of knowledge, discovered and developed by Aryans till then. In the other words of English scholar F.W. Thomas, there has been no country except India where love of learning had so early an origin and has an exercised so lasting and powerful influence. According to the historian, Indians were totally governed by Vedas during 2500 BC to 500 BC, and they call this period as Vedic period. So Vedic period was during 2500 BC to 500 BC. India was the first country of the world which could be developed a very sound system of education during Vedic period. This system of education is known as Vedic system of education. The Brahmins had acquired sole right on the education in the later Vedic period. So a number of scholars call the later Vedic period as education, Vedic system of education as the Brahmin system of education. And because both the system of educations, the early Vedic system of education and the later Vedic system of education were developed by Hindus, so many scholars call this both system of education as Hindu system of education. We consider it as appropriate to call it Vedic system of education as it was developed in the Vedic period and it remained almost same during the whole period. Okay, so this was about the Vedic period. If question has been asked to you that what do you mean by Vedic period, explain in detail, so you must tell all these things. You must tell its duration, that it was during period 2500 BC to 500 BC. You must mention about the four Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, Sam Veda. You must tell them that these are the oldest scriptures of the world. You must tell them that these all are the repositories of all types of knowledge developed by Aryans till then. You must tell that famous line of F.W. Thomas that there has been no country except India where love for learning and so early an origin has been exercised so lasting and so powerful influence. And you must tell why this system of education is called Vedic system of education. You must tell why it is called as Brahmin system of education, because Brahmin in the later Vedic period system of education, they have a sole right over education. You must tell that why some of them tell it as Hindu system of education and why you call it as a Vedic system of education. So this is regarding the question that what do you mean by Vedic period, explain in details. Now let us move to our next topic, that is main features of or characteristics of Vedic system of education. The system of education which was developed during the Vedic period is termed as Vedic system of education. The administration and organization of education remained almost same throughout the Vedic period, but with the advancement of time, knowledge, art and skills, its curriculum and teaching methods underwent a change. The main features of Vedic system of education are as we will now discuss them one by one. Okay, first one is administration and finance of education. Three facts need mention in the context of administration and finance Vedic system of education. Number one is free from state control. The state was not responsible to organize the education during Vedic period, with the result that it exercised no control over it. The education during this period was completely under the individual control of gurus who were the sole in charge of their Gurukul. So in 1 marks they may ask who is the sole in charge of Gurukul. So gurus. Okay. So during this period, state has no responsibility to organize education. Okay. And if they have no responsibility, so it means they have no control over it. So the whole responsibility goes to the gurus, who are the head of these Gurukuls, right? They organize everything related to the education in their Gurukuls, and they are the sole in charge. Now next point is free education. Education during Vedic period was completely free. There is no charge for education. Okay. The gurus themselves arrange for lodging and boarding of the students. The students of course used to pay Guru Dakshina to their teachers according to their financial position and volition. Yes, this was the trend that they pay Guru Dakshina, right? Third thing is source of income. Donations, dans and Guru Dakshina. So there are three sources of income: donations, dans and Guru Dakshina. During Vedic period, the Gurukul did not receive any regular grant from the state as it is in case today, right? So today you see that many of the states, they give donations to build colleges, schools and everything related to education. But at that time there is no such provision. So during Vedic period, the Gurukul did not receive any regular grant from the state as it is in case today, right? The kings, emperors and affluent section of the society voluntarily gives donation in the form of land, animals, grains, clothes, utensils and money to these Gurukuls. The student begged alms from the society to meet the day-to-day need of the Gurukuls, right? The third source of income to the Gurukul was Guru Dakshina. On completion of education, student paid Guru Dakshina according to the individual volition, which could be a land, animal, grains, clothes or money, right? Now let us discuss about the structure and organization of education. Education during the Vedic period was divided into the two levels, namely primary education and higher education. Primary education means primary education during Vedic period was arranged in the families. The Vidyaramb Sanskar, that is called commencement of education of the child, was initiated on some auspicious day at the age of about 5 years. This ritual was conducted by the family priest. The child was bathed, put on new clothes and was presented before the priest. The priest would spread a new cloth on the grains. The priest would spread a new cloth with grains on it. The god and goddess were invoked and worshipped by Vedic mantras, and child finger was made to run on the grains, making some letters or alphabets, right? The priest was then fed and paid dakshina. He blessed the child and thus regular education commenced, right? So this was the first thing that is called primary education or Vidyaram Sanskar. It initiates. So at the age of 5 years, they bring the child bathed and new clothes, right? And then they present that child to the family priest. Then what did family priest do? He spread one cloth, right, and spread some grains on it, and then some grains on it, and all the gods and goddesses were invoked with the Vedic mantras. Then after that, what happens? After invoking that, then that child is made to draw some letters or alphabets on that grains. Then priest was fed and paid dakshina. He blessed the child and thus regular education commenced. Second one is higher education. Higher education during Vedic period was organized in Gurukuls, right? The children were admitted in the Gurukuls at the age of 8 to 12. Brahmin children was admitted at the age of 8 years. Kshatriya children at the age of 10 years and Vaishya children at the age of 12 years. Upanaya Sanskar of the child was performed at the time of admission in the Gurukul, thus commenced the higher education after this ceremony. So there was a ceremony of Upanaya Sanskar, right? So as you can see, there is a difference between the admission age of the children here. So if it is a Brahmin child, so he is allowed at the age of 8 years. If he is Kshatriya child, at the age of 10 years, and if it is Vaishya child, he is allowed at the age of 12 years. Now meaning of education. During Vedic period, education had narrow and extensive connotations. Both. So during Vedic period, education has narrow and extensive connotations both. It was used as synonyms to the knowledge, humility and discipline. So education means synonym of knowledge, synonym of humility, synonym of discipline. Generally, the knowledge of different subjects and training of the arts and skills imparted after the Vidyaram Sanskar in families and after the Upanayam Sanskar in Gurukuls was called education. So you can say that knowledge of different subjects and training of art and skill imparted after doing Vidyaram Sanskar in the family and Upanaya Sanskar in Gurukul. So there are two Sanskar which are very important to start the education of child. First one is Vidyaram Sanskar, that is done in the family by the family priest. Okay. Second one is Upanayam Sanskar, and that is done in the Gurukul itself, right? It was the narrow meaning of education. So this is very narrow meaning, means we have two Sanskar, Vidyaram and Upanayam Sanskar. Now, however, when the students completed education in Gurukuls, a Samavratan Sanskar, that is convocation ceremony, was conducted, and Guru addresses the students that they must not laze about in self-study. It means knowledge was acquired whole life through self-study. It was the wider meaning of education. So the wider meaning says that the Guru addresses all his students that they must not laze about in self-study. It means knowledge was acquired whole life through self-study. It was the wider meaning of education. Right? Now moving to the next, that is aims and ideas of education. So first is preservation and enhancement of health. The Vedic rishis and gurus considered salvation to be the ultimate aim of human life, and a healthy body and healthy mind as a sine qua non to the attainment of this goal, right? So this is the reason that special emphasis was laid on physical and mental health of the students. In the rishis, ashrams and gurukuls, they impart education of proper nutrition and right thinking. The students were made to rise early in the morning in the Brahma Muhurat, and after ablution took physical exercise, had simple food, followed daily routines and abstained from addiction to sustain sound health, right? So there must not be any type of addiction so that they can sustain sound health. Nutritious food was arranged for the students and special stress was laid on physical labor. In the case of illness, they were even medicated immediately. To sustain and enhance the mental health of all the students, they were inclined towards proper thinking. They were educated to abide by truth, non-violence, non-stealing, renunciation and celibacy, and to abstain from sex, anger, greed, love and intoxication. So this was the main points that they have focused. So we were discussing aims and ideals of education. First point was preservation and enhancement of health. So the main focus is laid on the enhancement of health, mental health as well as physical health. So for that, what they do, first of all, they used to wake up in the Brahma Muhurat. After ablution, they took physical exercise, they had took simple food, they follow their daily routines, and they abstain from addiction to sustain a sound health. They were provided nutrition, food, right? And they laid a special stress on the physical labor also. And in case they fell ill, what they do? They took medication immediately, right? And to sustain and enhance their mental health, students were inclined towards proper thinking. They were educated to abide by truth, non-violence, non-stealing, renunciation and celibacy, and they abstain from sex, anger, greed, love and intoxication. So this was about preservation and enhancement of health. So moving to the next topic, that is development of knowledge. So this is the chief aim of education during Vedic period. Knowledge was considered to be the third eye of man. Jnanam manujasya trityam netram. Jnanam manujasya trityam netram. Jnanam manujasya trityam netram, means education means knowledge is considered to be the third eye of man. The two eyes merely help us to perceive and concentrate on the material world, whereas the third eye enables us to comprehend the material, concrete and metaphysical abstract world both, right? So your third eye is your knowledge. So if you want to improve or open your third eye, you should work very hard, you should get more and more knowledge, okay, and you should distribute more and more knowledge, because distribution of knowledge, it makes you sharper, right? And your third eye should be very, very sharp. With this third eye, you can control the whole world, okay? But first, I think you should control yourself and focus on studies, okay? It shifts the fact from fiction, shifts truth and untruth, okay? Clarifies do's and don'ts, what you have to do, what you have not to do, that is clarified by your third eye, the knowledge, and enlightens the path to the physical and spiritual achievements. For material prosperity during Vedic period, the students were educated in the language, grammar, agriculture, cattle rearing, art and skill, and were trained in social activities. For the spiritual development, they were taught language, literature, religion and ethics, were trained in religious activities. What do you mean by saying here development of knowledge means? This is the chief aim of education during Vedic period. So they focused more and more in opening this third eye, which they call as a knowledge of the student, right? So they say that we have two eyes, with these two eyes we can perceive and concrete the material world. But this third eye, the improvement of this third eye, the opening of this third eye is very important, right? Because it clarifies that what you should do, what you should not do. It enlightens your path of physical and spiritual achievements. And it also says that for a material prosperity during Vedic period, these students were educated in the language, grammar, agriculture, cattle rearing, arts and skills. They were trained in social activities, right? And for spiritual development, they were taught in the language, the literature, the religion and the ethics, and were trained in the religious activities also. Next one is acquaintance and observance of social and national duties. It was the third chief aim of Vedic period education. The students were made conversant with their duties towards the society and the nation, and they were duly trained in their observance. The Samavratan ceremony. Now here comes Samavratan ceremony was held at the completion of education. The Guru preaches the students in this ceremony. This sermon includes services to the parents, services to the society, and observance of the duties of family life. The Guru also preached the students to clear three rinas, that is depth: Pitra Rina, Guru Rina and Deva Rina. I repeat this once again. Acquaintance and observance of social and national duties. Right? So this was the third eye of, and chief aim of Vedic period. This is the third chief aim of Vedic period of education. Acquaintance and observance of social and national duties. Right? The students were made conversant with their duties towards the society and nation, and they were duly trained in their observance. The Samavratan ceremony was held at the completion of education. The Guru preached the students in their ceremony. This sermon includes services to the parents, services to the society, observance of the duties of the family. Right? Guru also preached the students to clear their three rina, that is the Pitra Rina, Guru Rina and Deva Rina. Now fourth comes preservation and development of culture. Our culture since inception has been religious oriented, right? Our mode of living, food habits, customs and traditions and value of all based on religion. One of the main education during Vedic period was the preservation and transmission of our culture. The entire working system of Gurukuls was religion and culture oriented. The students were made to memorize Ved mantras. They were taught the methods of evening prayers and to work according to the ashramas or age. education during the Vedic period ran so orderly that under its influence people voluntarily entered Vanprasthana ashrama after the Grihastha ashram and passed their time in the forest in studying, thinking, learning and meditation and in the discovery of new and novel facts. Some of these people also entered the sannyas ashrama and achieved salvation through meditation. It helped preservation and development of culture in the country. In fact, the foundation of culture in that era was laid so strong that in spite of many tumultuous phases, it still exists. Right? So this was the preservation and development of culture, how it was conducted. We can say that our culture, it has been already religious oriented. We can see our mode of living, we can see our food habits, our customs, tradition and values. They are all based on religions. You can watch yourself 24 hours all around you. You will find everything that is related to your food habits, your custom or your mode of living, that is based on religion only, right? So one of the aim of the education during this period was that these things should be preserved and transmit our culture to the future generation, right? So the entire working system of Gurukul was so cleverly designed that it is religion and culture oriented only. Students, what activity they do? They used to memorize Ved mantras. Okay, they are being taught the method of evening prayers, morning prayers according to the ashramanas or age, right? So education ran so orderly that its influence people voluntarily enter. So this education system during that period was so good that people, they entered Vanprasthana ashram. After their Grihastha ashram, they entered Vanprasthana ashram, and some of them are so disciplined that they even entered Sannyasam ashram. Sannyas ashrama means to achieve their salvation through meditation. So all these activities, they helped in preserving and developing the culture in our country. In fact, it is the foundation of culture of that era, right? And it has laid a very strong stress on preserving and transmission of such types of cultural and religious based activities, right? So we can say that foundation of culture in that era was laid so strong that in spite of many tumultuous phases, many difficulties, it still exists. You can see, although the Gurukuls are very few in numbers nowadays, but they still exist. Okay. Number 5 is, next is moral and character development. During Vedic period, character building meant to train people to behave according to the religious and to provide proper direction to their conduct and thinking on the basis of religion, right? So moral and the character development during the Vedic period, okay, it is too much important. During Vedic period, character building meant to train people to behave according to religion and to provide proper direction to their conduct and thinking on the basis of religion. For the moral and character development of the children, they were educated in religion and ethics since inception. They were trained in the activities like observance of celibacy, control of sense organs and self-control. Next point, education of livelihood, arts and skills. The opinion of some of the scholars that no vocational education was imparted to the student during Vedic period is quite baseless. You cannot say like that, okay? Next point, we are talking about education of livelihood, arts and skills. The opinion of some scholars that no vocational education was imparted to the students during Vedic period is quite baseless. Okay, so this sentence is quite baseless, that it is not right to say that vocational education was imparted to the students during Vedic period is quite baseless. That means nobody can say that nobody has a vocational education system at that time. There was, right? The fact concerning education of that period have revealed that students were educated in agriculture, cattle rearing, other crafts and skill according to their ability. Our country was prosperous and people led a very good life. However, in the later Vedic period, occupation based on caste system was replaced by caste based occupation as a result of which people were then educated according to their caste. This I can say that in later Vedic period there is a change. And what was this change? Now the education is based and skills are given according to their caste. For example, if I talk about Brahmin, he will be given education related to the priest. He will be trained in such a way that he is very expert in religious activities and teachings, right? Kshatriyas, the warriors in administrations and wars, they are taught the techniques to fight, right? And the Vaishyas, the business class in the agriculture, cattle rearing, trade and commerce. So the education of medical science could be acquired by the children of these three classes, right? In the last phase of Vedic period, the Shudras, that is the working class, were deprived of any right to education. Shudras were not given any education, right? In the last phase of the Vedic period, Shudras, the working class, was deprived of any right to education. They served the three higher classes. They served the three higher classes for which no formal Gurukul education was required. They served the three higher classes for which no formal education, no formal Gurukul education was required, right? They were trained in their services duly in their respective families only, right? I repeat this last sentence. I hope it is a little bit confusing. In the last phase of Vedic period, the Shudras, the working class, were deprived of any right to education. They served to the three higher classes, means they are working for these three higher classes, the Brahmins, okay, the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, right? So they are working for these three classes and for which no formal Gurukul education is required. So it is not mandatory that first they will get educated, only then they will be able to serve it, okay? So this is what this is they means they are trained in their services in their respective families, means they are given the training only in their families only. When everybody has a child, okay, when it is in the childhood, he has or she has been trained so that they can serve these three classes. I think it is clear. Moving to the next, that is called spiritual development. Spiritual development. The ultimate aim of the education during Vedic period was to purify the inner and outer aspect of the man so as to enable him to proceed towards the salvation. So if I talk about spiritual development, this is the ultimate aim of the education during Vedic period, and it is used to purify the inner and the outer aspect of the man so as to enable him towards and proceed him towards the salvation. To achieve this aim, the students were made conversant in the language, in the literature, in the religion and in the ethics. They were made conversant, right? And the spirit of religiosity, right? And the spirit of religiosity and devotion to the God and developed. And they were trained in the activities like control of sense organs, right? They were trained in the religious based conduct, in the evening prayers and fire sacrifices, the yajnas, etc. Right? So this last point I repeat, it is related to the spiritual development. The ultimate aim of education during the Vedic period was to purify the inner and outer aspect of man so as to enable him proceed toward the salvation. Means spiritual development related to the proceeding of man towards the salvation, right? And for achieving this, they have been done with so many tasks, such as they are being conversant in the languages, in the literature, in the ethics, in the spirit of religiosity and devotion to the God, and was developed, and they were trained in the activities like control of sense organs, religion based conduct, evening prayers and fire sacrifices, right? Means the yajnas, right? Now the curriculum of education, let us have a focus on the curriculum of education. When I talk about curriculum of education, right? So when I talk about the curriculum of education, curriculum during the Vedic period may be explained on the two bases, one on the basis of levels and other on the basis of its nature. Curriculum during Vedic period may be explained on two bases, one on the basis of level and another on the basis of nature. So level and nature, though two categories are there, one is level and second is nature. Education during Vedic period was divided into two levels. First of all, if I talk about level, I am not going to talk about nature right now, nature of education. I am going to talk about the level of education. So there are two levels which are possible, primary and higher education. It means curriculum of primary education. Let us talk. Curriculum of primary level in the Vedic period comprised of training in language, training in grammar, training in prosody, P-R-O-S-O-D-Y, prosody, simple calculations, social behavior and religious activities. I repeat, primary education, what does it include? During Vedic period, it includes training in language, training in grammar, training in prosody, training in simple calculations and training in the social behavior and religious activities. Moral stories were further added to it during the later Vedic period. The people who desire to admit their children in the Gurukul for higher education, they educate them in Sanskrit language and its grammar in more better way. So language is taught Sanskrit, but its grammar is focused more, right? So grammar is taught in a more better way. Curriculum of higher education. If I talk about curriculum of higher education, I have discussed curriculum of primary education. Curriculum of primary level means giving training in the different languages, giving training in grammar, giving training in prosody, giving training in simple calculation and social behavior and religious activities. Later onwards, some moral stories, telling moral stories were also added to the later Vedic period. And the people, why they admit into the Gurukul? Because their main aim was that they admit their children in the Gurukul for higher education. They educate them in Sanskrit language and their grammar is in more better way. Now second one is curriculum of higher education. Curriculum of higher education during Vedic period was divided into two parts, general and specific. One is general and another is specific. So education of Sanskrit language and its grammar, religion and ethics were compulsory imparted to the higher level of education. For example, if I say you all are doing this course, right? So your 4 subjects are compulsory. So at that time, what is compulsory? The compulsory is Sanskrit language and its grammar, religion and ethics. So there are 3 things: Sanskrit language, grammar, religion and ethics. 4 okay? So these 4 are compulsory levels of education, right? Beside this, they had to undertake physical exercise regularly. They have to arrange the Gurukul. They have to arrange the Gurukul and serve the teachers, right? They have to make the arrangement in the Gurukuls. They have to serve the teachers, right? So it may be termed as general education. It may be termed as a general education. Regular arrange the Gurukuls and serves the teachers. They regularly arrange the Gurukuls and they serve the teacher. It may be termed as general education. The education of various scriptures of Vedic, rearing, craft, skills, politics, geology, physiology was optional during the early Vedic period. So what I say there were 4 compulsory subjects: Sanskrit language, grammar, religion and ethics. Okay, and what I say that there are some optional subjects. I talk about these optional subjects is, I can say for example, the education of various scriptures of Vedic, rearing, craft and skill, politics, geology, physiology and physiology was optional during the early Vedic period, right? So now I say several subjects were included in the curriculum of higher education during later Vedic periods, such as history, Puranas, astronomy, jurisprudence, economics, Deva Vidya, Brahma Vidya, Bhuta Vidya. So these were added later on, right? At that time, what was in the you can say in the practice there were literature, religious performances, astrology, medical sciences, military sciences, agriculture, cattle rearing, crafts and skill, politics, geology and physiology. They were in optional subjects, right? And 4 subjects were main. And what are those main subjects? Sanskrit language and its grammar, religion and ethics. These were the main. And what were the optional? Optional, I again repeat for you. Optional were, for example, education in Vedic literature, religious performances, astrology, medical sciences, military sciences, agriculture, cattle rearing, crafts and skills, politics, geology and physiology was optional, right? Several other subjects were included in the curriculum of higher education during the later Vedic period, such as history. Now, these are the subjects which are added later on, and they were history, they were Puranas, they were astronomy, they were jurisprudence and economics, Deva Vidya, Brahma Vidya, Bhuta Vidya. These three Vidyas were there. Deva Vidya, Brahma Vidya, Bhuta Vidya. You can write easily in your exam. Deva Vidya, Bhuta Vidya, Brahma Vidya. They were added later on in the later Vedic period. So it may be termed as specific education. So these were the specific subjects, such as somebody becomes specific in Vedic means history, somebody becomes specific in Puranas, somebody becomes specific in astronomy, somebody becomes specific in jurisprudence, somebody becomes specific in economics, somebody becomes specific in Deva Vidya, Bhuta Vidya, okay, and Brahma Vidya. So it may be termed as specific education. The students were free to choose any subject of their choice, okay, on the basis of its nature. Now I will talk about on the basis of nature. Till now I have talked about the levels. The level were 2, primary education and higher education. Now I will talk about the nature of the education. So on the basis of its nature, curriculum of education during Vedic period, it was divided into two forms, Apara and Para. Apara and Para, A-P-A-R-A, Apara. Apara means materialistic curriculum, okay, and Para means spiritual, okay. So first I talk about Apara, materialistic curriculum. It includes language, grammar, numerology, agriculture, cattle rearing, arts. In arts we can say music and dance, skills, weaving, dyeing, woodwork, metalwork, crafts, economics, politics, geology, physiology, snake science. Snake science is also there at that time, okay, and logic, astrology, medical science, military science, exercise, Gurukul organization and Guru services. These comes in Apara, means materialistic curriculum. So I repeat once again, the materialistic curriculums at that time was language, grammar, numerology, agriculture, cattle rearing, arts and music and dance, skill, weaving, dyeing, woodwork, metalwork, craft, economics, politics, geology, physiology, snake science, logic, astrology, medical science, military science, exercise, Gurukul organization and Guru services. This comes in Apara. Now I will talk about Para. Para means spiritual curriculum. It includes the education of Vedic literature, Vedas, okay, Vedangas and Upanishads. So Vedic literature, when I talk Vedic literature, it means Vedas, it means Vedangas, it means Upanishads, right? Theology and ethics and training in activities like control of sense organs, religious based conduct, mode of worship, evening prayers, yajnas, etc. So I repeat, this para spiritual curriculum includes Vedic literature, Vedas, Vedangas, Upanishads, theology and ethics, and training like control of sense organs, religious based conduct, mode of worship, evening prayers and yajnas, etc. Right? So I think para means spiritual is clear to you, apara means materialistic, both are clear to you. So moving next, now we will discuss the methods of teaching. Imitation, repetition and rote method was there. Imitation is a natural method of learning. Education of language and conduct of primary level was imparted through this method. Imitation, right? It was used at higher level too. The teachers pronounced Vedas mantras before the students and the students imitated them, right? Pronounced them again and again and thus memorized them. So imitation is one of the methods. Repetition and rote methods, right? So explanation, second method is explanation and illustration method. During Vedic period, the teachers, the gurus were made the student learn a rule of grammar or Ved mantra and then explained it, analyzed its meaning and purport and used similes, metaphors and illustrations to clarify its meaning and purpose. Okay. So explanation and illustration methods. During Vedic period, teachers, means the gurus, they made the students learn a rule of grammar or Ved mantra, suppose. Then they explain it in front of all the students. Then they analyze its meaning and its purpose, and use what they use. They use similes, metaphors, illustrations to clarify its meaning and purpose. Okay. Third one is statement, demonstrations and practice method. During Vedic period, activity based subjects like agriculture, cattle rearing, craft, military science and medical science were taught through statements, demonstrations and practice method. The teacher first told the method of performance of an activity, then demonstrated. The student imitated him and practiced the activity to gradually attain proficiency in it. Okay, so this is one of the method called statement, demonstration and practice method. First they stated the statement, means theoretically they tell, then they demonstratively perform the activity, whether it is related to some military science, medical science or cattle rearing or agriculture. After demonstration, the student learn this activity, and then after that learning, the student practice it gradually and attain proficiency in it. It become perfect in that. Okay. Next method was question answer discussion and debate. Question answer discussion and debate. In the later Vedic period, the question answer discussion debate and Shastrarth method on the style of Upanishads were developed. In early Vedic period, teacher preached and lectured and the students listened to them silently. However, in later Vedic period, the student put forward their doubts and teacher solved them. So in early Vedic period, they just listened. They used to sit quietly, but after some time, they have doubts and the teacher solved them. So debate was also conducted in higher education, high level teachers and students. Conferences of scholars were also held for discussion on very serious subjects, and Shastrarth was held. The student listened to them all and enhance their real and related language. Okay, so student listen it and they enhance their related language, right? So this was question answer discussion and debate method. Next comes your Shravan, Manan and Nidhyasan. Listening, Shravan means listening, learning, Manan means learning, and Nidhyasan means practice. Shravan, Manan, Nidhyasan. Shravan, Manan, Nidhyasan. Listening, learning, practice. Listening, learning, practice method. Okay. This method was also propounded by the compositors of Upanishads. Whatever the teacher lectured, the explanation they made about Ved mantra, etc., and the knowledge they imparted about religion, philosophy, and other subjects, the student listened them attentively, learned it, contemplated about it, and practiced regularly on the fact and truth that they could grasp. Okay, so listening, learning and practice. Next one is logic method. This method of teaching was developed in later Vedic period to teach subjects like logic. There were 5 steps of this method, namely resolve, purpose, example, application and deduction. I repeat, resolve, purpose, then example, then application and then deduction. Storytelling method. In the later Vedic period, Acharya Vishnu Sharma created stories to educate the princes about ethics. These stories were compiled under the title Panchtantra and Hitopadesh. The teacher, the Acharya, asked the question after telling the story. The last question used to be, what moral do you learn from this story? Thus this story tells the method was a little different from that of modern one. Okay, so these were the 7 methods of teachings used during the Vedic period: intimation, repetition and rote method, explanation and illustration method, statement, demonstration and practice method, question answer discussion and debate method, Shravan, Manan, Nidhyasan method, then logic method, and in the last is storytelling method. Okay, Acharya Vishnu Sharma created a stories to educate the princes about the ethics. In the end of the story, they used to ask the question that what is the moral that you have learned from the story. Now we will talk about discipline. In the early Vedic period, discipline means physical, mental and spiritual control. You should be physically controlled, you should be mentally controlled and you should be spiritually controlled. Physical control refers to the observance of celibacy, to abstain from vanity, using fragrance, entertainment through dance and music, intoxicants, gambling, killing cow, telling lies and backbites. So, physical control refers to the observance of celibacy, to abstain from vanity, using fragrance, okay, entertainment through dance and music, intoxicants, gambling, killing cows, telling lies and backbiting. Mental control refers to the control of sense organs, speaking truth, okay, observing non-violence, non-stealing, renunciation, celibacy, and keeping away from sex, anger, greed, love, and intoxication. Spiritual control meant identifying the form of soul, perceiving similar identity in all, and working for universal welfare. However, in the later Vedic period, abiding by the teacher, order and rules of Gurukuls came to be considered as discipline. So in the earlier Vedic period, discipline means physical, mental and spiritual controls. Physical, you know very well, you means observance of celibacy, abstain from vanity, using fragrance, entertainment through dance and music, intoxicants, gambling and killing cow, telling lies and backbiting. Mental control means control of sense, means you have to always speak truth, you have observing non-violence, you should be non-stealing, renunciation, celibacy, and you should keep yourself away from sex, anger, greed, love and intoxication. So spiritual control means identifying the form of soul, perceiving similar identity in all workings of universal welfare. However, in the later Vedic period, abiding by the teacher, order, the rules of Gurukuls came to be considered as discipline, and pupils failing in this were punished. So punishment came in the later Vedic period, much later, when they have certain rules which are considered as discipline. But physical punishment was given in special circumstances only. During that period, Manu, Gautam and Vishnu Sharma were not at all in the favor of physical punishment. Of course, Yajnavalkya had approved physical punishment under some specific circumstances. Now let us discuss about teachers, the gurus. During Vedic period, very scholarly, self-studious, religious and persons of good character could become the teacher. During the Vedic period, very scholarly, self-studious, religious, a person of good character become the teacher. Besides being scholarly, they used to have an extreme self-control. They occupied the highest place in the society and were established as God. They were addressed with such adjectives such as Divyavasu, whose intellectual is his riches, Satyajanama, who knows the truth, Vishvaveda, omniscient. They were the sole owner of their Gurukuls, but complete ownership entailed full responsibility too. They were responsible for complete management of their Gurukuls. They arranged for lodging, food and clothes of the student, looked after their health and made efforts for their all-round development. So the teachers of the Vedic period, they think of all-round development of the child, right? So they were very, very self-studious, very scholar, right? And they have a good character. So that's why they are chosen as a teachers. And beside this, they were considered as a god in the society, and they were addressed with some names such as Divyavasu, Satyajanma, Vishvaveda. So Divyavasu means whose intellectual is his riches. Satyajanma means who knows truth. Vishvaveda means omniscient. They were the self-owners of their Gurukuls, but complete ownership entailed full responsibility too. They are responsible for complete management of their Gurukuls. They arranged for lodging, food, clothing, and students looked after their health and made efforts for their all-round development. Now I will talk about students, the Shishya. During Vedic period, only unmarried students were admitted in the Gurukul first of all, right? Now you can see most of you are admitted in the college and you are married, but at that time only those who are unmarried, they are allowed in the schools, right? The students were called brahmachari, that is called celibate, celibat, celibate. They had to observe celibacy, simple eating and pure sattvic food, right? So they had to observe celibacy, eat simple, okay? They have to observe the celibacy. They are eating simple foods. They are pure sattvic. They are not using any non-veg. They wear simple clothes and had to abstain from intoxication. They don't use any alcohols and all these things, right? The student had to make arrangements, right, for the Gurukuls beside their study. Abidance by the Gurukul rules and services to the teacher was their prominent duty. Their daily routine was very regular. They had to rise up early in the morning during Brahma Muhurat and they perform ablutions, took physical exercise, make arrangements for the Guru Girha, means teacher's residence. They perform worship and Havan, that is fire sacrifice, etc. and then sat down to study. After doing these activities, they sat down to study. They had their dinner before the sunset and retire to the bed only after having served the teacher. So first of all, what they do in the evening before sunset, they took the their meal in the evening, and after meal, okay, after the sunset is there, so they retire to the bed only after serving their teachers, right? So now we will discuss about teacher-student relationship. So this is about teacher-student relationship. During Vedic period, the teachers and the students enjoyed a cordial relationship. The teachers considered the student as their son and the student regarded teacher as their father. Affection flowed from above and devotion streamed from below. Affection flowed from above and devotion streamed from below. The Gurukuls were jointly arranged for by the teachers and the students both. This arrangement worked very efficiently through the division of work. It is conjectured that every student had to perform every work in rotation. No discrimination was made among the students. The responsibilities performed every work in rotation. No discrimination was made among the students, and the responsibilities and the works of the teachers toward the student and vice versa may be summarized as follows. Now I am going to discuss what are the teachers' duties towards the students. So in Vedic period, teachers were fully responsible for the students. They undertook the following responsibilities and duties towards the students. First of all, to make arrangements for the students' lodging, food and clothing. It is teachers' responsibility. They make the arrangement of students' lodging, food and clothing. To look after the health of the student and arrange treatment in case of falling ill. To compulsorily impart education in language, religion and ethics. To impart education to the student according to their ability, that is in the early Vedic period, and according to the Varna, the caste, in specific subject or activity, it is in later Vedic period. So to teach the student good conduct and build their character. They teach the student a good conduct and they build their character. To inspire the students towards activities worth doing and prevent them from undesirable activities. So they inspire the student toward activities worth doing and prevent them from undesirable activities. To help and all around development of students. They help the all round development of the student. To instruct student to enter Grihastharam, that is family life, after the completion of education and suitably guide them. So they instruct the student to enter the family life, that is called Grihastha Ashram, after the completion of education and suitably guide them. To continue to solve their doubt even after the completion of education, and to guide them. So this is the responsibility. At least 9 points you have to write. What are the responsibility of the teachers towards the students? So first is they make the arrangements of lodging, food and clothing. Secondly, they look after the health of the student. In case they fall ill, they take care of them. Okay, and they also impart the language, education language, religious language and ethics language. Then they teach them good conduct and build their character. They inspire them towards the activities worth doing and prevent them also from undesirable activities. So in one way we can say that they are doing the all-round development of the student. To instruct the students to enter the Grihastha, that is Grihastha Ashram means family life, and completion of the education, and suitably guide them. To continue to solve their doubts even after the completion of the education and guide them. So students' duties towards the teacher. Now let us discuss the students' duties towards the teacher. What is that? During Vedic period, the students were fully devoted towards their teacher. They observed the following responsibilities and duties towards their teacher. First of all, to look after the cleanliness of Gurukul and its complete arrangement. It is the duty of the students. To clean the Guru Griha, that is teacher's residence, and arrange for teachers' worship, right? To seek alms for the teacher and other resident of the Gurukuls. To arrange food for the teacher. They arrange the food for the teacher and other residents of the Gurukuls, right? To arrange for post-prandial rest for the teachers. Arrange for the post-prandial rest for the teacher. To massage the feet of the teacher before going to the bed. Before going to the bed, they used to do massage in the teacher's feet. To abide by the orders of the teachers with devotion, right? To abide by the orders of the teachers with devotion. To pay Guru Dakshina according to one's volition on the completion of the education, right? To continue to honor the teacher and abide by their teachings even after the completion of education. So these were the duties of the students. Again 9 points you have to remember and write. That student, they always look after the cleanliness of the Gurukul and complete arrangement. Secondly, they clean the Guru Griha. That is the residence of their teachers, right? And make arrangement for the teachers' worship. They seek for the teachers and other residents of the Gurukul. The arrange of the food. They arrange the food for the teachers and whole rest of the Gurukul. Okay. They arrange post-prandial rest for the teachers. They also give massage to their feet. Okay, before going to the bed. So, and also the most important is to abide by the orders of the teachers with devotion. Next one is to pay the Guru Dakshina according to the one's volition on the completion of the education. And the last one is to continue to honor the teacher and abide by their teachings even after the completion of the education. So this is what one question I have discussed since in this audio. I hope you have enjoyed. In the next audio, I will be giving you what do you mean by Indian education system and describe in detail the Vedic education. Or you can say that describe in details Vedic education and explain its aim. So thanks for listening. I hope I'll meet you soon in the next audio. Thank you for listening me.